International audiences are becoming increasingly vital
Yep.
for Hollywood studios,
Yeah.
especially for those big-budget blockbusters. In some cases, a film's international box office can literally make or break its profitability.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not just about appealing to American audiences anymore.
Right.
Filmmakers need to think globally.
Exactly. They need to consider cultural nuances, different tastes,
Yeah.
and how their stories might, translate across borders.
Yeah.
It's a new set of challenges, but it also presents a fantastic opportunity to connect with a much wider audience than ever before.
Speaking of opportunities,
Yeah.
let's circle back to Moana 2 for a minute.
Okay.
We talked about its projected success earlier,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's worth, digging a little deeper into
Yeah.
why family films, especially sequels,
Yeah.
tend to perform so well during the holidays.
It's a fascinating phenomenon.
It is.
I think it's a combination of factors.
Like what?
Well, first you have, the holiday season itself,
Yeah.
which is often a time for families to come together and share experiences.
Right.
Going to the movies fits perfectly into that tradition.
It's like a built-in audience.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then you add in the appeal of, familiar characters and stories.
Right.
Sequels, especially in the animated realm, offer a sense of comfort and nostalgia,
Yeah.
which can be, particularly appealing during the holidays.
Oh, for sure.
It's like revisiting old friends.
Plus, let's be honest, parents are often looking for ways to keep their kids entertained during those long holiday breaks.
You're not wrong.
I know.
So studios are smart to capitalize on that demand by releasing family-friendly sequels during this time of year.
Yeah,
It's a win-win.
it is.
Families get a fun outing, and studios get a box office boost.
It almost feels like a perfectly choreographed dance between audience expectations and studio strategy.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it's a dance we'll likely continue to see playing out in the years to come.
Oh, for sure.
But it's not just about sequels and adaptations, is it? We have to talk about that elephant in the room,
What's that?
Barbenheimer.
Oh, absolutely. While this past weekend might not have been as explosive as that record-breaking phenomenon, Barbenheimer is still a major force at the box office. And a big reason why the annual box office numbers are recovering, especially compared to how 2023 was looking.
It really shook things up.
It did.
Barbenheimer showed us the power of cultural events and how they can, reignite that excitement
Yeah.
for the theatrical experience.
Even though we haven't seen another weekend quite like it,
Yeah,
it's a positive sign
it is.
that the box office is continuing to rebound.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about Barbenheimer is that it wasn't just a fluke.
Right.
There were some really smart, strategic decisions behind its success.
Like what?
Well, the dual release strategy,
Okay.
pitting a seemingly lighthearted Barbie movie against a dark historical drama,
Yeah.
was genius.
Yeah.
It generated an incredible amount of buzz
Oh, yeah.
and sparked all kinds of conversations, online and offline. And both films were critically acclaimed,
Right.
which only added to the momentum.
It felt like everyone was talking about it, whether they were planning to see both films, picking a side, or just weighing in on the whole phenomenon.
Yeah.
It was a brilliant marketing move that tapped into our desire to be part of a larger cultural conversation.
Exactly. And it showed that there's still a huge appetite
Yeah.
for original, thought-provoking cinema, especially when it's presented in a way that feels fresh and exciting.
Right.
But Barbenheimer also raises some interesting questions, doesn't it?
Like,
About the future of movie releases, marketing strategies,
yeah.
and what it takes to create a true cultural moment
Right.
in today's, fragmented media landscape.
It certainly does, and I think it's a conversation worth having. It feels like we're at a real turning point in Hollywood, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
Between, the return of musicals,
Yeah.
the global box office boom,
Yeah.
and the fact that family films, they just never seem to go out of style.
Right.
There are just so many fascinating trends to unpack.
Absolutely.
And then you've got Barbenheimer, just to throw another wrench in the works.
Yeah.
It's like it proved that original ideas, they can still, capture the public's imagination in
Yeah.
a really big way.
It's an exciting time to be following these trends, that's for sure.
It is.
And what's particularly intriguing to me
yeah.
is how these different trends might start to, intersect and influence each other.
Oh, okay.
Could we see more musicals specifically targeting international audiences?
Interesting.
Or family films that rely even more heavily on global box office returns?
Right.
It's a really dynamic landscape.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if we're about to see a shift, in the types of stories that get told.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility.
On screen.
As studios become more and more reliant on those international markets, they might be more inclined to greenlight films with a more universal appeal.
Right.
Stories that resonate with audiences from different cultures and backgrounds.
So maybe we'll see fewer of those hyper-specific American stories.
How so?
And more tales that tap into those shared human experiences.
Yeah, it's a trend I'm watching closely.
Okay.
Or maybe we'll see a rise in co-production.
Co-productions.
Yeah, films made by studios from different countries, working together.
Now that would be exciting.
Yeah, that could lead to some fascinating collaborations and storytelling approaches.
Imagine the possibilities.
Yeah.
But, we've talked a lot about adaptations, about sequels. What about original ideas?
Right.
Is there still a place for, fresh, innovative storytelling in Hollywood?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
And honestly, I don't think there's an easy answer.
Okay.
Yes, studios are often looking for, those sure bets.
Right.
And familiar stories can feel like less of a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, audiences crave novelty.
Yeah.
They want to be surprised, delighted, and taken on a journey they haven't experienced before.
It's like a tightrope walk for those studios.
It is.
They have to balance those financial risks of original content against the potential rewards of, striking gold with a truly innovative story.
It's a tough call.
It is.
But ultimately, the success of any film, whether it's an adaptation, a sequel, or a completely original idea, comes down to good storytelling.
Right.
If a movie can connect with audiences on an emotional level, transport them to another world, or challenge them to see the world in a new way, it has the potential to be a hit.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a really hopeful way to look at it.
Yeah.
It gives me confidence that even in this era of franchises and remakes, there's still room for those bold original stories to break through.
I agree, and I think we're starting to see signs of that happening.
Oh, yeah.
There have been a few original films this year that have done incredibly well.
Okay.
Both critically and commercially. It suggests that audiences are still hungry for fresh perspectives, for unique voices.
So maybe the future of Hollywood isn't about choosing,
Right.
between adaptations and originals, global and domestic markets, familiar stories and brand new ideas.
I think you're right.
Maybe it's about embracing all of these things, creating a cinematic landscape that's both diverse and engaging.
That's a wonderful vision for the future of film.
Right.
A future where creativity knows no bounds and where stories from all over the world can find their audience.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of box office trends.
It's been a pleasure discussing all this with you.
Likewise, and as always, we want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
As you watch movies in the coming weeks and months, pay attention to the stories being told, the characters being brought to life, and the worlds being created on screen.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, what does this film tell me about the current state of Hollywood?
That's a good question.
What does it reveal about our hopes, our fears, our shared human experience? Because sometimes the most profound insights are hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, they are.
Just waiting to be discovered.
I couldn't agree more.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Absolutely.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating journey into the world of knowledge and ideas.